How's everyone doing today? Thanks for stopping by the Hands on Q podcast. The PlayStation 5 showcase just wrapped up, and let's talk about it because there's a lot of things to really discuss what was showed and presented in the showcase, and also, ironically, the amount of information that were disclosed after the showcase. So it's definitely a discussion, a topic for a lot of PlayStation fans. I myself am a gamer, so anybody that knows me personally know that I've been playing games since the early '80s, and I don't have sides. For me, competition is only better for us as gamers. And I want to see everybody succeed, and I want to see everybody bring out good content, because ultimately, in the end, it's about the games. The hardware is just a platform or a framework to play those games, but it's really about the games. Yeah. It's always fun when new generations happen, and you kind of see the excitement build up for what's new to come. And definitely, there's people out there that aren't PC gamers. They don't have the funds to put together a good gaming rig to play some of the games at the best fidelity out there. And with console gamings, it's an easy, right. It's supposed to be plug and play. It's supposed to be as easy as possible, even though that has changed in the last few years with PlayStation and Microsoft, Sony and Microsoft, with the way the consoles are architect. They're becoming like little mini PCs, but purposely built to play just games only and nothing else, right? So a lot of the things from PC are being brought over to the console side. So there's definitely a merging of those similarities together. I think the only company that has really separated that and have kind of done their own thing is Nintendo, which is exciting, but also you also get the good and the bad, right? So there's a lot of failures to taking risk, but there's also a lot of success when those risks do pan out, But yeah, let's focus on the PlayStation showcase. So from the content itself, the games that Sony showed was very, very solid. It shouldn't be a surprise that Final Fantasy 16 is exclusive to Sony. And Sony and Squaresoft have always had a really good connection ever since the PlayStation and Sony got into the gaming industry. So of course Square is going to remain loyal as much as they can to Sony on certain franchises, certain titles. I mean, they got the Final Fantasy 7 remake, and that's exclusive on the PlayStation. For about a year or so. It should be heading to other consoles pretty soon, Xbox and PC. But yeah, Final Fantasy 16. It didn't surprise me that Sony got the exclusive on that. It's great that they got that. Whether it's specifically console exclusive, I mean, nowadays exclusivity means nothing anymore. A lot of it is just time exclusive, because you know what? These game companies, it's a business. And one thing that, as a gamer myself, and you guys need to realize, is that the gaming industry is a business. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. And these companies really don't cater to the fans as much as we think they do. I think a lot of what gamers out there or fans out there feel as if they're catering to them, or it's a lot of like fan service. It's the marketing teams within these companies that are trying to take advantage of that. But from a pure business perspective, these companies, it's all about profitability and the bottom line, right? So Final Fantasy 16 exclusive on PS5 didn't surprise me at all. It is coming to PC as well. For PC gamers out there, I think that's good that you guys will have that option to play Final Fantasy 16. The early showing, the direction looks promising. The graphics don't really look next gen. To me, I think it's something that even the PS4 can handle right now. So we'll just have to wait and see. And there was no release date on it, so. Looking at Squaresoft's track record, especially with Final Fantasy VII, and when they showed that and when it came out, It wouldn't surprise me if this was not a game that's coming out in 2021, maybe 2022 or beyond that. Or if they do bring it out next year, who knows? Maybe they'll make it episodic. It's totally up to Squaresoft on how they want to do this, but I like them to keep that as a single game, release it out, and don't expect it for 2021. If you look at their track record. So outside of Final Fantasy, and that was a great first showing of games coming to PlayStation 5. The next thing they showed was Miles Morales, Spider-Man, and that looked amazing. I mean, it's definitely a margin above what we've seen with the Spider-Man game on the PlayStation 4. But yeah, it's definitely great. Other contents, other games that they've shown, the Harry Potter game, that was really good too. I think it's been rumored for a while. It was good to actually see some gameplay, and that is a multi-plat game. It's not exclusive to PS5. It's also headed to PS4 and the regular Xbox, so that's good. Follow up to Resident Evil 8 Village. I think I would have liked to see more gameplay on Resident Evil ever since they kind of debuted it on the other PlayStation showcase. But we know this is a multi-plat game. It's not exclusive to PS5. We know it's coming to the Xbox. It's going to be PC. But it was good to see that. And then Capcom followed up with Devil May Cry 5 Special Edition with some enhancements. This is a very interesting, showing of this because, I have to look back, but I believe this was already kind of available for PlayStation 4 already. So I'm wondering if the PS4 version, people that have the PS4 version will get the upgrade to the PS5 with all the updates. Word came out after the conference that Devil May Cry 5 is shooting for 120 frames per second, some ray tracing effects. So, it's going to be interesting to see. Can't wait for Digital Foundry to kind of compare it and see the performance. But yeah, that was good. Then some other showings were some games that me personally I'm not really interested in, but they did throw it in there just to have some variety. Was Five Nights at Freddy, Security Breach, and then the Oddworld game. I'm not a big fan of Oddworld. I played it back in the PlayStation 1 days, but overall, I think it's kind of harkened back to the original Oddworld direction, just with better graphics, more things on screen. But we'll have to kind of see when it comes out to see if it's not going to sell system. No one's going to buy a PS5 for Oddworld. But at the same time, Oddworld, I believe, is a multi-plat game as well too. It's coming to Xbox. It should be on PC as well. I think after that, I think this wasn't in any order. I'm just kind of looking at my notes on games that were shown. But Demon Souls. Demon Souls looked actually really good. Definitely looked a little bit more next gen than most. I think as a PC gamer, it's on par with some of the things that I've already seen currently with the current PC generation. But definitely from a PlayStation perspective, it's definitely cleaner and much more graphical looking than the first version of Demon Souls. So the remake looks amazing. And it's good that they showed that. And I think those are some of my highlights with the showcase in showing that. And of course, at the end, they had to tease, God of War. I think, if you're a PlayStation fan, all these franchises are coming to PlayStation 5. Yeah, so it's good that everybody assumes God of War 2 was in the works, but it's just good to know that it's been confirmed, and they're targeting a 2021. So that's gonna be great. I think if Sony and even Microsoft, if they look at the way to launch a system, they should really look at how Nintendo did it with the Switch, where they didn't put all their eggs in one basket and have a ton of games ready for launch. They actually staggered it through their launch window or even launch year for the first year, and it made fans and customers and people that bought the console felt like there was a consistent flow of games coming out. Because if you think about it, some of these AAA games, especially from Sony, they're going to take a while to beat, unless they're short, 5-10 hour spans. But if they're really good games, they should take a while. And no one wants to stockpile games. There's so much more. I have a huge backlog of games on my Switch, and there's a ton of games I still have to catch up on Xbox Game Pass. So with Sony, it's best to stagger it to make people feel there's a consistent amount of flow. I mean, even if you had a look at the failures of the Wii U and how Nintendo stacked everything at launch, and then after that there was nothing available, it was a drought. You don't want to go down that route, and I think Sony's kind of learning that. So content-wise, the showcase was pretty solid. I really enjoyed a lot of the game announcements. As a gamer, I'm very happy. Hopefully, PlayStation fans are happy with what was being announced. But definitely, there were some head scratchers because I think, in the showcase, a lot of people were expecting specific dates. Are these launch games? When can I, anticipate these games? And it wasn't really provided during the showcase. It was provided after the showcase, which is it's kind of concerning because I think with the amount of hype and the audience that they had, Sony had a missed opportunity to really hype up the launch of the PS5. So I think maybe from a business perspective, they thought that maybe the pricing announcement was all they needed to have in the showcase to really hype up the PS5, and it did. And the PlayStation 5 is going to be $499 with the disc drive, and without the disc drive, $399. And even though after this showcase, there's a lot of follow-ups with other news groups out there on Sony's pricing plan, and they stated there were some statements and being reported that they solidified the pricing back in spring, and to me personally, I think it's kind of like a half truth. I believe they entertained this particular price option of $499 and $399, but I can also assure you that they also had a pricing structure for $599 and $499 for the PlayStation 5. And the reason why they really wanted to wait was they wanted to see what Microsoft was going to do. Because if the Series X came out at $599, they would have gone with that option. All these companies, they have contingency plans. They all have spies. They know what the competitor is doing, and they're putting plans in place. It's not last minute reaction. They've already have a plan A, a plan B, and maybe even a plan C. But they've had this all laid out. As a competitor, you're always trying to think what your competitor is doing, right? So they've mapped it all out. So because the leaks and the announcements of the Series X pricing and the Series S pricing, that all that did was force Sony to say, okay, so that's where Microsoft's at. We need to go with the Plan B route. Because again, if Microsoft would have came out and the Series S was again $299, but the X was $599, you would have saw Sony come in at $599 and $499. But because that didn't happen, they pivoted to the pricing structure they have now. So what's interesting is what would this all be if the leaks didn't really happen within Microsoft? Would Sony have launched at a higher price and then got undercut by Microsoft? See, I think Sony really lucked out in this aspect that Microsoft had the leaks last week, and they had to force their hand in announcing things early, because I think Microsoft was in a position to really undercut Sony here. But I think Sony lucked out. The leaks happened, and they pivot to their plan. And you can definitely tell in the showcase because, if you think about it, look at the launch dates. It's launching 2 days after the Series X, and everywhere else a week later. I can bet you that the November 19th date was the original launch date worldwide, simultaneous worldwide launch. Because why wouldn't you launch worldwide? You give your time logistically to get all the consoles into the retail market, into the channel, to the consumers. And because the leaks happened, they knew Microsoft was coming out. They didn't want a week to go by to lose any type of momentum. So that's why I think that particular announcement of the release date was kind of like last minute. I believe that right there, as part of the showcase, was added in last minute. They made a conscious decision to say, hey, units were already going to ship in a week, because you guys got to understand, I used to work in retail. So back in the early 90s, I worked for electronics boutique in those early days, and then they transitioned to EB Games. So I was there through the whole GameStop acquisition. So these launch systems come in a week before. They're stored in the back room. You know, they're ready for a huge launch type of a party, right? For when a system gets released. So Sony and Microsoft, they're going to be sending these units in weeks before the launch date to kind of ramp up the inventory, to build the hype, to do all that, right? So Sony already knew that they were going to do that if they were targeting that 19th date of November. But because of the leak, this is just my opinion. Don't report this as facts, but in my opinion, they made a conscious decision to say, hey, I believe we should launch in the Americas, because that's one of our biggest market, very close, same week. And of course, they're not going to do it on the 13th. You know, there's a lot of superstitious with Friday the 13th. So launch it on a Thursday, right? So at the same time, Microsoft's stocking retailers with their Series X, Sony's coming in the same week too. So, and even if it's going to be a little bit of a smaller quantity, at least they're there 2 days after the Series X, and then all the inventories trickle in throughout the holiday season, right? So I believe that because they moved it up, their numbers, they're probably not going to report their numbers. I think overall they were not anticipating Microsoft to launch that early. A lot of people were banking on the week right before Thanksgiving, before Black Friday, as the launch windows for the new generation systems. So, you know, and you know what, guys? I think as gamers, this is what I've talked to offline with a lot of my friends, a lot of other gamers. Is that competition is only great for us as the consumer, because prices are going to go down, right? So because of the competition between Microsoft and Sony, you're getting the pricing that you're getting for the consoles, which is great because, quite frankly, there's a lot of tech. There's a lot of really good tech built into the consoles. And as a gamer myself, playing console games and PC, building a PC rig to do what these consoles are going to do is going to cost way more than what they're selling as an all-in-one package, for this, right? So like, kudos to competition. I'm not that type of a fanboy that roots for one or the other. I want them all to be successful because it's only going to drive better options for us as the consumer. Now, there's some caveats to after the PlayStation showcase that happened, right? So the pricing was great. The gaming content was great, but man, oh man, what the hell happened with all this information that came out after the showcase, right? Why didn't Sony put a lot of this into the showcase? Again, I think Microsoft really made Sony move the showcase up 1 week early to kind of build the momentum and take away some of the momentum that Microsoft was getting from the leaks last week. So I think because of that rush, they weren't able to organize it a little bit better. But it still doesn't justify why they couldn't add a simple blurb in both Spider-Man and both Demon Souls to say launch titles, right? Even if they knew the date could possibly pivot from the 19th to the 12th, the way they've announced it in that one slide that showed the dates, they could have done the same thing. I mean, if they knew it's a launch title, they could have said, from a generic standpoint, marketing standpoint, you can just say, if those games are going to make launch, you could have just said launch titles. You didn't need to put the date, because if you're going to announce a date later on, at least customers would know, okay, I'm going to be looking forward to Spider-Man. I'm also looking forward to Demon Souls and other games that are going to be launch titles, right? And, from a Sony perspective, they're saying this is the best PlayStation launch lineup that they've had. And yeah, I mean, if you look at other launch lineups for Sony from PlayStation 1, 2, 3, and 4, I think it's pretty solid. Not the best launch title of any system. I think as a gamer, and for what I've seen through the history of gaming from the 80s to now, I would say probably the most underrated and to me, the best launch console lineup was probably the Sega Dreamcast. They had so many really, really great games at launch for the Dreamcast, and that was a very underrated system. They got undercut by PlayStation, by Sony, by the things that they were promising with the PlayStation 2, and quite frankly, I enjoyed the Dreamcast way more than the PlayStation 2 in the early couple of years that the Dreamcast was out. But that's a different discussion for a different topic. Let's go back to Sony, and I think that was something that could have really drummed up the hype even more. You can go online right now on YouTube and look at all the different reactions to the showcase from some of the major mainstream YouTubers, and the content was there. If they would have said launch title for Spider-Man, launch title for Demon's Souls, it would have been, yeah, people would have gone crazy. They would have driven the hype exponentially higher than what it was. And the hype was already good after that. But here is where the hype kind of died down with all the information that came out afterwards. So one of the biggest things is the turnaround, of Sony when it comes to cross-generational games. And I think they were giving flack to Microsoft for holding back next gen. And here's Sony reversing and backtracking, and now both Spider-Man is going to be available on PlayStation 4. Horizon, the new Horizon game is going to be on PlayStation 4. Sackboy's on PlayStation 4. And even though it hasn't been confirmed, I mean, if God of War is coming out in 2021, is it a PS4 game as well too? I hope it's not, but who knows right now? And I don't really know if I should really believe Sony and what they're saying right now, because they've backtracked on this. But here's the thing I want to tell you guys as a gamer is that as a gamer and as someone that experienced new generations, every new generation, unless you're a very hardcore gamer like myself that needs to have the latest and greatest system on day one to experience new technology, be a gearhead, a tech head, right? When new generations come out, it's only us and people like us that will gravitate to buying those things on day one and within the first year. And Sony knows this, Microsoft knows this, even Nintendo knows this, right? The hardcore gamers, it's already a given. They're going to be the ones that are going to get it day one, right? And my advice to a lot of friends that are just casual gamers, they love playing games, but they're not into it as I am. During a new generation, I always tell them it's always a transition. It's going to take year two for these companies to really get into their groove and have the games that will really exploit the system. And that first year, it's really games are going to be kind of like in the middle of the pack, and I've said that to a lot of my friends already. That's why, people that are on Xbox and PlayStation 4 right now, that I have friends on, I tell them, like, if the games don't appeal to you, just wait a year, because, you're not going to be the early adopters, and games are going to take a while to transition. It's going to happen to third parties. Come on. These third-party game companies, they're not going to exploit the PlayStation 5 or the Series X to its full advantage. It's going to take a while. And if anything, it's going to be the first-party companies that exploit the platform more, because the third parties, they're used to, programming their games across multi-plats, including PC. So I think, from that perspective, you shouldn't worry that they're not really fully taking advantage of the PS5 or the Series X. Because quite frankly, this year with the release of the RTX, 30 series, I mean, PC gaming, it's leaps ahead of both the Series X and the PlayStation 5. Ray tracing, high resolution, all that, high frame rates. It's, if you want to have truly next gen, a performance, if you're a performance gearhead, then go with a PC. Invest in the RTX 3080 and build a PC. Built on that, you're going to future-proof it for the next couple of years. You're going to be solid for a while with the type of horsepower you're getting off of the RTX 3080 versus what you're getting from the Series X or the PlayStation 5. But people that gravitate to the Series X or the PlayStation 5 are gravitated by the games. And it's all about the games, like I said it earlier. It's going to be really about the games that really drive the hardware. The hardware doesn't have to be anything. Look at the Switch. Switch is not very powerful, but because of the software and the availability of all the different types of software, people are buying it like crazy. It's going to push hardware sales because the software is there. It's going to be the same thing for Sony and for Microsoft. And I think Microsoft's direction is a little bit different. It's very clear Microsoft's going for subscription-based Game Pass, and their games are also on PC. Sony, I think, still, Sony and Nintendo are the key first-party companies that have some really good exclusives that you can't play anywhere else, right? Microsoft, even with their acquisitions of all these other first-party companies, those games are coming to PC as well too. So really, the best combination, if you're a gamer, is to have a PC plus whatever platform or choice for those exclusives. So PC and Switch, PC and PlayStation 5. I don't really see people doing PC and Xbox Series X because you're gonna get it on both. so if you really want a good variety of games, that's usually the combination. But yeah, sticking to this the Sony showcase, it's going to be a lot of cross-generational games. And something that I didn't put back before when they announced Spider-Man for the PlayStation 5 is, a lot of people, even on the internet, thought that this could have been DLC. Probably, I was thinking maybe not, because they're probably putting a little bit more into it, but they're probably not putting as much into it as an original Spider-Man sequel. So now that it's been announced that it's a launch title, and then we got the information that it's going to be $49.99 for the game, and it's also coming to PS4. You knew, everybody should know, that Sony knows that they needed titles to launch with a PS5. And they need to put a team together to say, hey, what are you working on PS4? Let's put it on PS5 as well, with all the enhancements that just from a hardware perspective, what the additional hardware enhancements can do. And that was what happened, And I think that's the same thing that happened with the sequel to Horizon. Like you knew that after Horizon, Sony was already working on a sequel. It was done on the base PlayStation 4, and then they're like, oh, the PS5's coming out. We should have a PS5 version, but let's just talk about the PS5 version, not talk about the PS4 for now, and then we'll slowly slip that information out. It's kind of a little shady on that end, especially since they were throwing a lot of flack with Microsoft. So I all these decisions that all these information that's coming out, it's not being decided last minute that, oh, Sony decided last minute we need to support the PS4. It's been planned. All this has been mapped out. They knew what they were going to do, and they were disclosing only enough information to the public in order to paint themselves in a better light, right? In terms of the next generation. So to me, I think they've lost some points there. Even PlayStation fans, hardcore fans that I've talked to, are kind of disappointed. They're still going to stick with the PlayStation brand. But it's really, when a company does that, you kind of question now, what are their true intentions, right? But yeah, no, it's definitely interesting there. And then the Miles Morales Ultimate Edition, $69.99. So here's the other thing during the showcase: Sony's raising the price for first-party games or AAA games or whatever you want to call them to $70. Now, I've seen on Twitter a lot of justification. Oh, yeah, you need to raise the price because you got to pay the developers more. That's bullshit, because they're already making a ton of money right now on games. The developers that work for these companies are paid on salary. They're paid at a certain way. It's a business, guys. These companies are there for profitability. And the reason why I believe the direction for the digital version of PlayStation 5 is such a big gap is because, and everybody knows this, once you go digital, you don't have used games to trade. You buy direct. So literally Sony and any other company like Microsoft that goes on a digital system only, and even Nintendo, they're basically bypassing the channel. They're bypassing the retail channel that has built up their business, and the profit margins are much higher and much more direct. No logistics, and it's just more money in Sony's hand. So to offset that big price gap, they are going to create this new standard for first-party games and AAA games at $70 a piece. That's going to be a hard pill to swallow because hopefully fans are going to hold these companies to a higher regard when it comes to paying $70 for a full-featured game. I think this is where PC gaming. I don't know how this will affect the games on PC, but I don't really think PC gamers are going to be spending $70 on a game. There's a lot of different, collector's edition, ultimate edition that people pay, but for a base game, it's really not going to happen. And I think here, might be, it might put Sony in a disadvantage here because Microsoft really haven't announced their pricing structure. Now, Microsoft, they can, comply with what Sony's try to set with $70 and do the same thing, Or Microsoft has an option B. They can go, you know what, guys? We have Game Pass. We're trying to promote our subscription base. It wouldn't be in the best interest for us to increase our pricing just to try to see if we can funnel people into Game Pass, right? So one thing they can make themselves appear to be is very consumer friendly and say, oh, we have Game Pass here, but all of our first party titles and third party titles are still at $59.99, even for the next generation. So technically, Microsoft can undercut Sony from the game's standpoint because Microsoft's playing the long game. They're playing the subscription. They're making their money on subscriptions versus on the titles. And this is going to be interesting to see how it plays out and how, most Sony and Microsoft pivot between systems costs and game costs. But yeah, guys, get ready to pay a ton more money for games from the Sony side, And the one thing I want to go back to the PlayStation Miles Morales is that if you buy the Ultimate Edition, you get the remastered Spider-Man on PlayStation 5. Now, they stated that Miles Morales by itself is also coming out of PS4. So, they need to clarify whether or not if I buy the PS4 version of Miles Morales, will I get the PS5 version, which I assume I am. But then what about all the PlayStation 4 customers that have the original Spider-Man? Are they going to be able to get the PS5 upgrades that Ultimate Edition in a full package, is going to happen? I think that's going to be the question here, and Sony needs to clarify that. And they need to clarify that with all their backwards compatible games. So I think the backwards compatibility is a little bit of another issue. And talking about backwards compatibility, during the showcase, I forgot to mention it earlier, they announced the Sony collection for PlayStation Plus. And I think this is another reaction to Game Pass. I think it wasn't that they did this last minute. I think they knew Game Pass was doing this. They were trying to plan. They were making deals on the back end already early in the year to get a bunch of these titles into this collection to be available. But I think, it's definitely a good value. It's added there at no additional cost for PlayStation Plus owners. But I think also they knew their launch lineup was going to be, or maybe their launch window is going to be very light. And they really need to figure out, backwards compatibility and how consumers that adopt the PS5 can play some of their old games. So if you buy the physical edition, you're going to be no problem. Your media is going to be able to play on PlayStation 5. But for the digital, how do you make the people to buy the digital, entice them to buy the digital, right? And I think the collection is a way to do that because, you can't put a disc in there if you own it. But if you say, oh, yeah, go to PlayStation Plus, if you're a subscriber and you need it for online, you're going to get all these games that you can download onto the digital only version and play them. So in a way, it's like, here you go. We understand you're buying the digital version, but here's that. But in a way, it's also a way to hook them into buying the digital versus the disc version because Sony knows they're going to be making a ton more profit, a ton more money on the games on the digital version of the PlayStation 5. Now, me personally, I'm going to get the physical version of the PlayStation 5 just because I want the media. I collect games, and I really don't like digital because if you really think about it, price drops happen frequently at retail stores, on Amazon, at Target, Best Buy, Walmart, things like that. Those retailers are trying to get you into their stores or into you to buy from their platforms. So what I normally have found is that physical games often have much more massive price drops with these different stores, and you'll be able to get a much better deal with those games than buying digital only. Yeah, and the thing is, you're gonna have to install the games anyways. So for me, it's better to get the physical version. I can play a lot of my PS4 games on it, but then at the same time, I know as a gamer, I'm going to get better deals on games because I'm going to have better price drops from these retailers than I'm going to get from Sony. Sony's not going to drop pricing on their digital version games, that often. They will, but it's not going to be that often. And to rely on them to do that, it's going to be very seasonal. It's going to be, based on things that are happening when it comes to holidays and events and things like that. So, I don't want to put that consideration and power into Sony's hand. I think getting the physical version is the best option for me as a gamer, and I would if anybody would ask for my opinion, I would tell them just pay for the physical edition, because even though you're paying $100 more, guys, you're going to have better flexibility with game costs. Because if you're the type of person that's not going to buy games day one, wait a couple months, man, those games drop in price. On the physical side, digital side, they're still full price. So again, if you have any questions, post them in the comments. I'll happy to give my opinions based off of that. And of course, on top of that, you can buy used games. So GameStop's the only place to buy used games now, but I believe Best Buy's testing used games, and even other retailers are testing used games as well too. So if you want affordable gaming in next gen, get the physical version. Don't get the digital version. Sony definitely dropped it so that they can control the narrative when it comes to digital distribution. They're totally undercutting their channel, and it wouldn't surprise me if retailers like a Target, like an Amazon, like a Walmart decided to tell Sony, hey, you know what? We're not going to order the digital version. We're going to order more of the physical version, because it's going to allow people to leave my stores with the system plus games. If you buy a digital version, they're not going to buy physical games with it. So they're both Sony and Microsoft are in a little bit of a crux with that. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Because again, retailers are trying to find ways to engage customers, and the digital-only version, it works with music and movies, but I think with games, it's going to take a while. And I think that's why Microsoft is really pressing hard on the Game Pass subscription-based model. I think Sony needs to evolve their platform with PlayStation Now and PlayStation Plus into something similar, because it could definitely, again, competition breeds better choices for us as consumers. So other than the pricing, guess where they make a lot of money. So I told you guys I used to work in retail, and this is the reason why GameStop bundles systems with controllers, with games, is because you make more margin selling accessories to that. So not only do the retailers make more margin, but Sony makes more margin because it's all licensed out. They make more money on the accessories. They can recoup some costs there. So the DualSense controller, $69.99. Didn't surprise me. If you think about the Joy-Cons and how people are paying $80 for that, there's a lot of tech. It's the same haptic feedback tech that Nintendo has in their Joy-Cons in the DualSense controller. So it didn't surprise me that that was $70. The headset with the 3D audio at $100 is affordable, but I'm a little bit worried with that, because 3D audio is, to me, I see that as a very premium feature. And I would rather see a premium headset than a low-cost headset for $99. I would have liked to see maybe $150 headset and put some really good detail. But who knows? When the headset comes out, I'll test it and I'll let you guys know my thoughts. But a little bit worrisome with a lower-cost headset, especially with the 3D audio and everything. I hope it's not really more mass market and it's more premium, but we'll have to wait and see. Everything else was kind of in line. The media controller for $29.99, dude, that is high margin item. If you look at that thing, I bet you they could have sold that for $19.99. $29.99, way overpriced, and they're making a ton of margin on that. They know that. And then what's the other thing? The charging dock, the two controller charging dock for $29.99. Yeah, I think that's about right, because the way they're pricing the controller. But I can tell you that even at $19.99, they would make a ton of margin. At $29, that and the media remote, they're making a ton of margin on for both the retailers and for both Sony. So, all right, from a pricing standpoint, next generation, let's see if that $70 price tag kind of sticks with Microsoft as well, and with PC gaming. I hope not. But it's going to be interesting to see how that unfolds. And then let's move on to some another additional topics regarding the showcase. Let's see, what else can we talk about here? Pricing. Oh, pre-sales. So that's the other thing, is that I think it was a huge debacle when it comes to the pre-sale. I'm hearing right now a lot of people are defending Sony. It's not Sony's fault. The retailers jumped the gun. Sony was supposed to give us ample warning about pre-orders. You can definitely blame the retailers for jumping the gun on pre-orders, but as a manufacturer, you can definitely put in mechanisms in place to prevent them from doing things like this, or breaking street date, or breaking street date from a selling a game early, or even breaking a street date for pre-order, because you can create penalties. You can say, hey, if you break pre-order street date on the pre-orders, your allocation gets cut in half, or you're moved down the priority list. So Sony as a company could have dictated this. They could have also stopped or prevented the retailers from having official UPC SKUs or part numbers and things like that until they're ready for pre-order. Because a lot of these retailers have placeholders, but they don't have all this specific information from UPC codes and all that stuff that the retailers really need in order to take pre-orders, right? So I think from that standpoint, Sony could have had better control in doing that. Again, the other thing I want to stress, guys, is don't feed the scalpers, man. These guys are predatory when it comes to things, especially coming up in the holidays that are hot. Don't try to feed them. You'll be able to get a PlayStation 5. You'll be able to get a Series X. It's going to be, you might not get it on day one, but you'll eventually get it. And I would say check with the retailers. Check with the retailers, because they'll get shipments in on a weekly basis. If you go to GameStop, I'm pretty sure they'll have ideas on when their replenishments are coming and when to get people to pre-order second waves, third waves, and so on. With Best Buy and like Target or Walmart, it's going to be more like, hey, just got to show up at the store when they get their shipments in. Talk to the manager. Find out when they get their shipments for restock for other things, because usually it comes in, all these stores get restock a certain day. And sometimes pretty often per week. So I would say befriend those people and talk to them like human beings. Don't get mad. They'll help you out, and they'll let you know when these systems are back in stock. Don't feed that. And then on top of that, the whole pre-sale debacle and why people are having a hard time getting into pre-sales from a tech standpoint. People also have to realize there's a lot of scalpers out there, or people out there that are going to take advantage of the situation, and they've written scripts or bots to order up, not only the PS5, but anything that's hot for the holiday season. It's pretty unfair, because the scripting that they're using, the bots that they're using, for us, when we, as a normal consumer, you go to a website, you're waiting, you click on websites and links, and you're waiting for things to render onto your screen, because it's getting all the web code and all that stuff, and it's trying to render all that information. Well, these bots can request and call up information from these sites without having to have the websites rendered up. And they have this huge advantage to navigate the whole, e-commerce website of these different retailers, and be able to place in orders fairly quickly. It's it's becoming much more evident that these bots are out there, that people are using them to order their a PS5, to order products that are going to be hot during the holiday season, and it's unfortunate. And you can tell. Go ahead and browse eBay right now, and every launch generation, like all these companies are going to claim they've sold out, they've sold so many numbers, but truly how many of those numbers are going to fans? And you just have to look at eBay and other auction sites to see that a pretty good percentage of people are not buying the systems to keep. They're buying it to resell them, right? So yeah, I would say don't try to bite into fostering or inflaming those resellers on eBay, because it's only going to drive those aftermarket prices up even higher. I think a lot of these numbers are just thrown out there because unfortunately there's going to be people that are much more well off than the standard consumer that don't have a problem dropping $1,000 or more to get a PlayStation 5 because their kid wants one and they have the money and they don't want to hear all this shit that they're hearing from their kids. So it's worth it for them to drop whatever cash because their disposable income is much higher than the normal average gamer. So, and unfortunately, it's those people that are driving up the high aftermarket pricing behind all this. And actually before the PlayStation 5 showcase, and I think, if Microsoft stuff didn't leak, I would have guessed that Sony would have launched higher because knowing the demand that they have, why would they give up on margin? Because people are going to in the early first year, people are going to buy their system regardless of price. You're going to have that hardcore fan base that's going to buy it regardless of whatever set price they put. I mean, look back at the PlayStation 3 when Sony announced, the PlayStation 3 with the tiered, costs of those systems, and people still bought them at those prices back then. And if you look at the inflation rate now, it was much higher than what it is, right? So, yeah. So, again, my suggestion is, be patient. You'll get it. You might not get it on the first day, but you'll eventually get the system. And if you have a PlayStation 4, if you're not really into Demon Souls Remake, I would say wait a year. Wait until there's a compelling game on PS5 that you want to play, because Miles Morales is coming to PlayStation 4. So if you have a PS4 4 or a PS4 Pro, getting the Miles Morales might not be a bad option. And the Miles Morales, you're going to get the PS5 version upgrade when you do upgrade to PS5. I think going back to my earlier comment is Sony needs to clarify the existing customer base that have like the original Spider-Man or other PlayStation 1 titles, Ghost of Tsushima. I can always tongue twist on that word. But The Last of Us, Part 1, Part 2, God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn, the first one, are customers going to... We know we're going to be able to play it on PS5, but if there's upgrades to these titles, are we getting them for free, right? So now that they've backtracked on this whole cross-generational process and really supporting the PS4, I think a way for them to kind of get back into the good graces of a lot of the PlayStation fans is to really dedicate some of these dev teams to creating those PS5 enhancements and allowing the PS4 fan base to transition to the PS5 with those updates for free, because if you think about it, that's always been the case with PC game. That's why when Microsoft brought out the term smart delivery, it's a marketing term. Backwards compatibility, marketing term. PC games, regardless of hardware and how you upgrade your PC, you're always going to get the best out of your game, right? So it's the same way, because these developers always code at the highest denominator. They always code at the highest, and it's always easy to slim things down for the much smaller systems to run, but they code at the highest level of fidelity and details. So yeah. So I think if Sony wants to, we'll see, because I don't know how much of a black eye this is to Sony, but definitely there's a lot of controversy. I wouldn't say controversy, but a lot of chatter amongst even some very loyal Sony fans regarding the PlayStation 5 showcase, the aftermath of the showcase, and how is Sony going to rebound from this. Again, the hype's going to be there. PS5s are going to be sold out. The Series X is going to be sold out. Even the RTX cards are going to be sold out, So it doesn't matter. Gaming is big, big money. And before I, conclude this podcast, you guys have to understand, as an audience, it's a business. It's a multi-billion-dollar business. They're there not for the players, but for the payers that pay for their games, software, hardware, all, etc. Right? It's for the payers. And if you think that they're catering to you as the player, they're not. If there's some type of monetization tied to this, they're going to utilize it to its full potential. And that's why Sony, great pricing for the consoles. The software went up by $10. And you might think $10 wasn't that much, but hey, we went from 49 to 59 and now 59 to 69, right? So if 69 is the new norm for base systems, base games, what's going to be for the collector's edition? One of the things I just saw, the collector's edition for Ori and the Will of the Wisp that Microsoft is bringing out to also Switch and Xbox and PC is the collector's edition for that. And granted, there's 2 games included, is $150, right? So that's a pretty good value for $150 with 2 games plus the additional stuff that you're getting. But what's going to be the new norm for special edition, packages, right? Are we going from 70? Is it still going to be $100 for like special edition, or are they going to push the envelope and these special editions are going to be like maybe $129 or even $150? I mean, it's going to be interesting to see, guys. And again, I'm hoping success for Sony, hoping success for Microsoft, for Nintendo, for PC gaming all as a whole, because it just gives us consumers better options when it comes to playing some of these really cool games, and for me, I've always been a gamer since playing Atari, Nintendo, Sega, and I think all this is exciting. It's always a good conversation to discuss with several people online. But yeah, end of the day, I hope Sony does well. I hope everybody does well. And, let me know what you guys think. Comment down below. This has, been a pretty lengthy podcast, but I think there was a lot of good topics to discuss. Are you hyped for the PlayStation 5? Are you a PlayStation 5 fanboy, or are you a gamer in itself? What are you getting this year? Like, what is your setup? My setup is that I'm getting the Series X. I'm also getting the Series S. Getting the PlayStation 5, disc version, not the digital version. And then I'm also going to be trying to debate on whether I want to spend the money on the RTX 3090 or if I'm going to keep, I'm just going to go with a 3080, because I have a feeling that NVIDIA is going to be bringing out something similar to like a 3080 Ti in between the 80 and the 90. I just think dollar per performance wise, the 3090 doesn't really give you that value. The 3080 gives you the best value right now at that price point. And man, the stuff that you can do with that particular video card for games coming to PC, it's gonna be mind blowing. It's gonna be very good. And as a PC gamer, I'm gonna be pretty set for a good solid 2 to 3 years until the next iteration of the NVIDIA graphics card comes out. But yeah, no. Let me know what you think. Thank you for stopping by and listening to my podcast on this. And if you're new, definitely subscribe, and I'll be posting more conversation topics on this. And yeah, post down in the comments, guys. Let me know if you're picking up a PS5 day one, or you're gonna wait. Let me know if you have any other questions. My next podcast, I think, based on some discussions with some people, I might talk about my experience working at Electronics Boutique and EB Games. And I was there during the transition to GameStop, and there's definitely some stories that I can talk about, some insight, interesting stuff. But I'll leave that for another podcast. That's probably about another good 1 hour podcast. This is already stretching close to an hour. This is about a good 50 minutes of discussions and opinions. And again, guys, these are my opinions. These are a lot of the stuff that I discuss in this podcast. If they're facts, if they're being reported, I do discuss that as well. But overall, a lot of the stuff that you hear on this podcast is my opinion. And if you want to know me a little bit more, I'll be talking a little bit more in other podcasts regarding my experience. Because definitely working in retail and in gaming, I made a lot of really good friends. I have a lot of friends that are developers now that work for a lot of major gaming studios, both on the Sony, Microsoft side of things. So definitely some insight on that. And the other things that I might also show is that I have a ton of memorabilia with games that I have. So I might end up giving some away. So, based on current feedback, I'll decide on what I should give away and what should I showcase. So again, thanks for stopping by. Everyone have a great day. I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.